I'm Dawn Pumi. Today on LA Currents, it's the annual event that brings 150,000 supporters to the streets to enjoy LGBTQ celebrations. We were there to capture all the energy and encouragement that is the LAPride Parade. Later, we hear from Councilmember John Lee, who shares how his commitment to the public is shaped by a genuine love of his own neighborhood, where he has lived for over 40 years. But first, it's Juneteenth. So how does Los Angeles commemorate the holiday? Anita Bennett talks with Councilmember Harris Dawson about the importance of Freedom Day and the city's celebrations of Juneteenth.
Well, Juneteenth marks a special day in U.S. history. On June 19, 1865, the last group of enslaved people in the country were freed. Joining us to discuss this freedom celebration here in the city of Los Angeles, as well as some of the other key issues affecting the city right now, is Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. Thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, we do it again.
Yes, there it is, every June.
Okay, so Juneteenth has been a federal holiday for a few years now, and it's also a state holiday. So in your opinion, why is it important that we continue to celebrate this day?
Well, it's an important story to remember. It's part of the American story. It's part and parcel of the American story. Slavery is something that really isn't recognized in any other formal way as a part of U.S. history, and it's such a big part of who we are as a country and who we've been, and really vestiges of which we are still trying to overcome to this day. And then there are the particularities of the story of Juneteenth that just shows the struggle and working through something. And so, you know, we here in Los Angeles, we wish homelessness would go away tomorrow and we could just have solved that problem. The story of Juneteenth teaches that, you know, even after a war, after the government sent several people to Texas who didn't make it all the way to Texas for some reason.
So the word that about the Emancipation Proclamation did not make it to Texas.
Exactly. It didn't make it to Texas. Shows that you just got to stick with something. You got to stick with it over time, especially big problems. And so that's an important lesson that Americans, Angelenos, and everybody, frankly, around the world can use in their day-to-day life.
It really is incredible that it's been over 200 years and yet we still are dealing with some of these struggles.
That's right. That's right. You see it in every walk of American life. You know, you look at the people of African descent and you say, hey, what's going on there? And then you look at the history and you understand that that's how this country started. It started really with slavery, as President Obama called it, as the original sin. And we continue to try to work our way out of that generation after generation.
It's really interesting, the original sin. So, and you mentioned homelessness. We are definitely going to come back to that. But I want to talk more about Juneteenth. How are you celebrating the holiday?
Well, you know, we have several celebrations, formal celebrations now throughout the county of Los Angeles, certainly a lot here in the city. You know, I grew up before, you know, Juneteenth was something that was recognized by mainstream society and certainly not the government. And so school was usually out by that time of year, and, you know, you just have informal barbecues, picnics, so on and so forth. And so there will be a lot of that as well. Mm-hmm.
You went to an HBCU. Tell us about what school, and did they mark Juneteenth there?
You know, I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, historically black college. The college Martin Luther King graduated from. Very proud of it, but school was usually out by the time Juneteenth came, so we'd get out of school in May, so there was no formal recognition of Juneteenth because, you know, that first day, that last final, I was on a plane back to LA for the summer.
For people who want to give back for Juneteenth, instead of celebrating, doing something for the community, what would you recommend they do?
Well, you know, there's always our local organizations and our local churches. Everybody's doing something. And so there is the small sort of anonymous gift if you just want to take clothes. You know, when you see people living on the street in your community, know that they always need underwear and socks. That is the #1 request of people living on the street. So there's that, but there's your local church is always doing something, and your local community organization as well.
Let's go back to Morehouse. Why did you go to an HBCU?
Well, I was an activist as a teenager, and I wanted to learn activism. I looked at all the schools. Worked out that Martin Luther King was a graduate of Morehouse College. I figured he knew a little something about activism, so I sought it out and understood the tradition of fighting to build a better world for our people, but also for every human being on the face of the planet. And so that's the school I chose, and it was a great experience.
And you took that out into the world after college. You became a community organizer.
Became a community organizer, found the Community Coalition. They were working on nuisance liquor stores and tobacco and alcohol billboards near schools, and the over-incarceration and criminalization of young black and brown people. And so I got to cut my teeth in a very exciting political scene where lots of challenging things were happening, but those challenges presented opportunities.
Were there any specific things that you learned at Morehouse that helped you when you decided to get into politics?
Well, there's a lot. There's far too many to name, but certainly that the point of society is the human family. That the reason why we have cities, towns, states, countries, groups, organizations, churches, clubs, all of it is to benefit the individual human and all the members of the human family. And so that whatever we do, it ought to forward the cause of humanity. And so that really is the guiding value that shapes the work that I do as a community organizer, certainly as a member of the City Council.
In terms of giving back, how do we use the momentum from Juneteenth, this positive energy, and take it into the future in terms of addressing homelessness?
Well, I think it's a great story. I think it is at one level, it's a sad story that people imagine being a slave, and you have to stay a slave 2 years longer than was legally required because the news didn't get to you. Incredibly tragic, but also triumphant, right? Imagine you're living there and you think there's no end in sight. This is never going to get better. We're never going to get people off of the streets. We're never going to have people make a wage that they can afford to live in a decent house in this city. And then suddenly things change. And they change because people keep pushing and people keep hope for a better future.
But hope is not going to resolve homelessness.
No, work resolves homelessness. And sometimes when the bed feels really good or you get discouraged, hope is the thing that makes you keep working instead of quitting.
We actually have some really good news about you. You are going to be the next president of the Los Angeles City Council. That is huge. You will only be the second African-American council president in history. How did this process come about?
Well, we knew we'd need a new city council president at the end of the year because Council President Krikorian will come to the end of his time on the council. It was important to many of us on the council, including Council President Krikorian, that we not have an abrupt transition. He had an abrupt transition, so one day he wasn't council president, the next day he was, and the old president had already gone. And so we wanted to set up a process, one, that held the council together as much as possible, because there's tremendous ideological diversity on the council at this time. So we wanted to hold the council together and have operational unity so we can get this business of the city done. But also we wanted to leave time so that there was a good down ramp and on ramp to the leadership of the council.
And when do you officially assume the position?
So September 20th is the date that Council President Krikorian will gracefully hand over the gavel and we'll be on. The great thing about that is Council President Krikorian will still be there for a couple months in case there are any bumps in the road or things that we hadn't anticipated. We'll get the benefit of his experience.
Are you feeling any particular pressure because this is historic?
I feel pressure on the one hand, but we lean on the stories. This is, I feel like I'm part of the tradition of this city and the tradition of our community in this city. Carlotta Bass was the first African-American to run for council in 1947. She ran in the 8th Council District, and she ran on a platform of rent control and tenant protections. So this is a long story, and I'm just a part of it. You asked about what was great about Morehouse. One of our professors, Professor Fluker, would always say when he was trying to get us to focus or to learn something or to dial into a lesson, he'd always say, "When it's your turn on the stage of history, will you know your lines?"
Ooh, that's good.
And that that's certainly how I feel. The way you know your lines is you've been paying attention to the play the whole time. And our story is a great one that I've been engaged of, and I'm happy to have a sentence or two in that story.
Thank you so much for coming in to discuss Juneteenth and your journey to becoming council president.
Thank you so much. It's always good to be here.
Selected as this year's Community Grand Marshal, Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley led the celebrations for LAPride at the annual parade. Now in its 54th year, LAPride took to the streets to mark progress, celebrate community, and have a blast.
Oh, it is just wonderful to see everybody here celebrating justice, celebrating freedom, celebrating pride.
I think it's important to be proud of who you are and celebrate who you are, and that's what today's about.
Just be proud of who you are, the way you were made, and show it, expose it to everybody, let them know.
It's so liberating, and it just makes me so happy to be here with everyone and just feel the love, honestly.
I love Pride every year. I love it so much. It's a whole nother community that just builds everybody else up in a way that no other community does.
This year is extra special because I've been selected as a Grand Marshal, so it's going to be a fantastic day to celebrate everyone within the community, and I'm really looking forward to the day.
Pronounced decay, rhymed with gay. America is proud today, and certainly Hollywood is proud today. We're marching down Hollywood Boulevard in our full regalia.
It is a really exciting moment to celebrate the diversity and the many, many different ways to be Angelenos.
A big part of Pride is community, inclusion, being loud and proud and in support of our beautiful diversity in our communities.
We're very proud to celebrate Pride with all of our employees and all of the Angelenos who are here today. It's great to be a part of an organization that is on the right side of history.
It's important for us to stand with the LGBTQ plus community to say we are your allies and City Hall has your back.
I mean, I think it makes everyone feel celebrated, feel welcome. People can see themselves in the parade, whether they're marching or not, and it creates an energy and a celebration for the entire community.
And just to see the thousands of people who showed up to show their alliance, their love, their support of this community. Humanity needs that, and LA got a great shot of that today.
Are you proud, Hollywood? Let's go! I love this day. Look at this, we're all in the middle of the boulevard. There's no cars, there's just people and love, and there's nothing better than this.
The largest celebrations in the world.
This is my second year chairing our city's LGBT Heritage Month and LA Pride Month. From the pylons at LAX to Pride here in Hollywood to downtown Los Angeles, lighting City Hall, lighting the 6th Street Bridge, raising the Pride flag in City Hall. We are baking your contributions, your culture, and your identity into the daily fabric of life in Los Angeles.
Muy bien, mucha aceptación de toda la gente, incluso vienen muchas personas que no son gays, heteros, y nos reciben súper bien. Les gusta el ambiente, ya saben, ya tienen la mente como abierta.
me hace sentir libre de poder vestirme y expresarme como soy, donde tenemos una comunidad donde todos nos voltean a ver con amor, con orgullo, y donde te ven vestido y la gente se alegra al verte.
Un mensaje a la comunidad que piensen que nosotros también somos seres humanos y también tenemos sentimientos. Nacimos en un mismo planeta, tenemos el derecho de compartirlos todos en general. Puedo respetar tus ideales, pero tú respetas mi preferencia, es lo único que se pide. No nos pedimos que nos acepten en su familia como sus primas, como sus hermanas, como familiares, no, pero sí que nos respeten. Lo único que nos respeten.
Well, Pride to me is very personal because I'm a lesbian and I have a partner of 36 years. It's extremely important to find a place in the community where you have a sense of belonging. And what better way to do that, to close a major boulevard, probably one of the most famous places in the entire country, to celebrate Pride.
It's a place for everybody. Everybody's accepted. Everybody can come and participate and just be themselves.
Everybody is here to support everybody for who they are, who they represent. So I think it's just a huge morale booster.
Not in the too distant past, you couldn't be authentic. And now we're celebrating people in leadership roles that serve as an example and a role model for everybody.
Part of this parade demonstrates our commitment to be all-inclusive, all in on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And we're here to celebrate love. We're here to make sure that everyone knows that at LADWP, everyone is welcome and the entire LGBTQ plus community has a place here and in our city.
We are here to make a difference in Los Angeles, and it starts by having a more inclusive LA, an LA that is for everyone.
Here in District 13 was the home of one of the first LGBT protests in the history of the United States. And it happened at the Black Cat in 1966. So we can't forget our roots, because the reason that protest happened was because on New Year's Eve, when folks were there celebrating their love, law enforcement came in and arrested them, which eventually led to one of the first protests.
Pride started as not a celebration. It started as a riot. And they need to hear us all the way back in Washington, D.C. and all over this country that your rights demand to be protected.
I've always said and say it again, I'll use the full force of the law, the full authority of my office to protect and defend the LGBTQ plus community. I've done that with our actions. We'll continue to do that, and I wanted to be here personally to show my ongoing support as we celebrate diversity and inclusion, human rights, civil rights.
And make sure that you go to vote, because it matters. Representation where decisions are made matters. We would not be California with all of our rights, everything that we've done to support LGBTQ and women's rights and Latino rights and immigrant rights all across the board because of the people that we elect.
Wishing everyone a happy Pride.
Happy Pride Parade!
A proud month and a proud year and a proud America.
Councilmember John Lee began his career working behind the scenes in politics. He joins us to discuss how his love of detail and policy that he learned in those early days is helping shape his community in the Northwest San Fernando Valley.
Council District 12 for the City of Los Angeles encompasses the northwest side of the San Fernando Valley. Our guest today was not only re-elected to serve as council member for the district, but he has been a resident since 1978, which is over 40 years. I'm delighted to be joined today by Councilmember John Lee. So nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, as I mentioned, and we've talked about a bit, that's a long time. You're staying in your home district. What is it about Council District 12 that makes you want to not only live there, but serve?
Sure, you know, it's the community that I was raised in. It's a community that I love so much. I think the reason why people moved to Council District 12, why they lived there, are the same reasons why my parents moved there in 1978, because they wanted to have areas where they had good neighborhoods, where they had good schools, but most importantly, they wanted to move to an area where people take the time to actually get to know their neighbor. You know, I always like to say that Council District 12 is the last slice of Mayberry here in the city of Los Angeles, because it is somewhere where you get to know your neighbors.
One of the huge, and you can't escape it because it just doesn't seem to, somewhat move, is the issue of the unhoused and homelessness. So I know that you put in some pretty robust programs in your district, and how are they in regards to getting people off the streets, but more importantly, what is your thought process in what needs to be done to actually make a more direct result to this crisis that we're facing?
You know, when I took office, we had 0 beds in Council District 12. I'm proud that in my first term in office, we were able to create hundreds of beds with a couple hundred more on the way. While I always believe that housing is a part of that solution, I think that we need to take a more holistic approach. You know, in Council District 12, when we build shelters, we have to make sure that we have a drug component to it, a drug addiction component, a mental health component into it. But I also think that we need to be doing more. We need to be doing more at the state level and the federal level, because I've always seen mental health as health. And we have a mental illness crisis on our streets. If somebody's having a heart attack on the sidewalk, we pull over and we help that person. When we see someone having a mental illness crisis on our streets, the only tool in our tool belt to deal with this is repetition, is hoping that they accept services on the 7th time that they didn't accept 6 times before. We need to be able to do more in this area and to really treat the mental illness crisis as a health concern, which is something that I've always believed in, and it's something I'm going to continue fighting for.
And with the 200 beds that you added, did you have any kind of comprehensive understanding of who was taking advantage of those shelters? And are there certain constituents in your district that you see are saying, oh, thank goodness this is here now, I have somewhere to lay my head? Or how is it played out in your district?
I think it's both. I think that once we created housing, we had, of course, there are people that want to get into shelter. I've always believed that when someone finds themselves unhoused, we need to get to them right away, because that's when we can get them before they spend too much time on the streets. We've gotten people into beds, but we've also had people who are service resistant, and we need to be able to look at different ways, because what is happening out on our city streets, us just allowing people to live and die on our sidewalks, is not humane. I don't understand when people say that we have no right to be able to try to help them. I think it's our responsibility to get help for the people who are living on our streets.
I know during the pandemic you had a huge priority placed on small businesses to make sure that they survive, and I know that there was a lot of support from your office to help those businesses. So now you have a little bit of a Tuesday morning quarterback view on it. How did the businesses in CD12 fare after the pandemic?
Yeah,
comparatively, actually.
Sure. I think you had a lot of small businesses trying to really think, do we keep our doors open? We're going to shut down for a while. Do we have enough resources to keep us going so that we can reopen and restart our business? We wanted to alleviate that fear from them. And so what we did was, not taxpayer money, we went and raised private funds to the tune of close to $750,000 to provide no interest loans to the businesses in our district. It was a huge success, and I think that whether they were new businesses, legacy businesses. Everyone needs help in certain times, and so those businesses that came to us, I was happy that we were able to create a program to support them.
What are some of the committees that you're working with and working on with the council right now?
Yeah, so I'm on some pretty big ones. I chair the Public Works Committee, which has been very important to me. Being someone who's worked in the city for many, many years, I understand the importance of making sure that we're tending to our infrastructure. Infrastructure is not always the shiniest penny, right? It's not more police officers, it's something, but it's something necessary we need to do. We have an aging infrastructure system that we need to be tending to, and I think by having that knowledge and experience as the chair of Public Works, it's going to allow me that sort of avenue to address those concerns that I've had for many, many years. I also sit on the Public Safety Committee, which you said earlier, which everyone knows is very, very important to me. I also Planning Land Use Management Committee. And so those are obviously some big ones that we get to look at really sort of all the important aspects of how the city is run. And I'm really proud that Councilmember Krikorian tapped me to be on those committees.
That's a lot of committees, and there's another one, right?
Yes, the Neighborhoods Committee. The Neighborhoods Committee is important because this is the committee that overlooks not only animal services, which is a very important subject to me, but overlooks our neighborhood council system. That is a system where local community members can get involved to be a part of shaping what their individual little communities look like. And so I'm proud to be on all those committees. They're as I named them, I mean, those are some pretty big communities, and I just appreciate Councilmember Krikorian putting me on them.
You have a bike transit area that you are creating, or have created, you know. So what are your hopes and dreams for just that, moving towards a more ecological way of life for your district?
Well, one of the things that I have been a big proponent of, we've said over and over in the city of Los Angeles that we need to move people towards, whether bicycles or public transportation. Okay, that has been actually a focus of mine. But as you've heard in the recent stories about what's been happening on some of our public transportation and the tragedies that have happened, is that if we're going to ask people to get out of their cars and rely more on public transportation, then we need to do three things. We need to make it clean, reliable, and more importantly than anything, we have to make sure that it is safe. And right now we are failing. Metro's not succeeding in doing that. While we have the numbers of ridership have been going up over the last, I believe it is 17 months, we need to be doing better. We have the World Cup coming here. We have Olympics in 28 here. We aren't going to be on the world stage. We are going to have additional millions of people here in our city. We need to figure a way to get them around from place to place, utilizing public transportation, making sure that it's reliable, but making sure that when our visitors are here, that they don't leave saying that they felt unsafe here in our city of Los Angeles, because the Olympics is supposed to highlight the city of Los Angeles. We need to show our best, and I'm hopeful that we are moving in that direction.
So if people want more information about what's happening in your district, what's the best way for them to find out?
So they just go to city12.lacity.gov and sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is where you'll find out all the information of not what we're doing here just at City Hall, but activities that are happening within the district and opportunities to volunteer. And so all the information you need is right there. Please sign up for the newsletter, find out what's going on in your community, and be a part of it.
That's fantastic. Well, it was wonderful having you back in, and we look forward to seeing you again. And I know exactly what you mean by Mayberry. There may be people that may not remember the allusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And that's a wrap on this LA Currents.